welcome to Pricing College with your hosts, Joanna Wells
and Aidan Campbell.
Okay, so have you ever been in a sales call with procurement and thought, gosh, I really want to get out of this unit price discussion, but I just don't know how? Or perhaps you are in a discussion with procurement and you've given them your lowest price and you're thinking, why aren't they going with me? And then they call you up and say, look, we've decided to go with another supplier. So today what we're going to do, we're going to talk about another important procurement technique and measurement that we believe suppliers should know about. And this is called the total cost of ownership measure. Now, this is an important concept for suppliers because often this is something they will judge you on. So, we're going to talk about what it is and why it's important.
So I think anyone who's ever had an addiction to shopping or buying clothes, etc., you can often justify buying a more expensive item. So say you go to buy a new coat. You could buy a fast fashion coat that might cost you $5 or $10. And you know, it sounds cheap on the initial price tag, but you might only wear it once. Or for the first wash, it might look terrible. The alternative is a much more expensive coat, something that looks great, but it could be, you could keep it for 20 years. You could wear it to important meetings, and you might even get a better job from going to an interview in it. So when you really look at the cost of owning that coat over the 20-year period that you have it in, maybe you had to buy 20 times the cheaper coat. And the actual more expensive one on a price tag basis might work out cheaper. The other classic example I'll give there is just batteries for your remote control or for any electronic device. Famously, Duracell batteries are supposed to last X times longer than a cheaper alternative. So you might buy a cheaper battery, but how many batteries do you have to buy over the lifetime of the supposedly more expensive Duracell? Realistically, it might be cheaper and save you hassle.
So I suppose to summarise, the total cost of ownership looks at the complete costs of owning something once it's bought, like from purchase to disposal. And when procurement are listening to your sales call, they're not just looking at unit price. A lot of salespeople think, procurement just want the lowest price. Not necessarily. Some are looking at the recurring costs involved when they buy your offer.
Yeah, I think we're all used to, say, you go to buy a car, and now with a lot of cars, specifically some of the newer entrants to the market. I'm thinking of people like Kia, which has built a very big presence here in Australia. 15 years ago they were I don't even know if they existed, but they were certainly unheard of, and they have offered things such as 7-year warranties, ways of really decreasing fixed price servicing, methods that decrease the total cost of ownership for that car over the lifetime of the car. So, the initial upfront price tag that you pay is only part of the actual cost. You have to look for a car, you have to look at ancillary costs as well, things such as insurances, fuel consumption. Does one car cost a lot more to run than another one? You can even, in some countries, there's even excess fees you have to pay for environmental performance. So the real cost of owning that car, it is related obviously to the component of the price tag of the initial purchase, but there are so many other factors to factor into it that really you'll only become aware of or have to make the cash payment for years down the line.
Yeah, look, another example, it could be, I'll take one from my own experience. When I was buying a water filter, I was looking at a couple of different suppliers for this water filter. The cost of one was like, $485. The cost of the other was more expensive at, $695. The cheaper one could do the job. But when I looked closely, in terms of doing the job, it could remove all heavy metals, etc. Filter the water, it tasted okay. But when I looked closer between the two of them, the cartridge of the cheaper one was much smaller, so that would mean I'd have to replace the cartridge more frequently. Also, both of them had to be installed by a plumber. The first one didn't have a free assessment to see how it fit into the house. The second one did, the more expensive one did. So overall, even though the upfront cost of that filter was more expensive, the 695. Overall, it had a bigger cartridge. I didn't have to change the cartridge as much over time. It had free installation from the plumber and a free assessment. So I thought, do you know what? That's great, because I also get advice from the plumber. Is this the right one for me?
I think if we wrap it all up, and where we're trying to go with this, I think the point of it is when procurement teams are buying any product or service, they're tasked with a couple of things. The first one is to get a great price, and a great price is a low price. They obviously want to pay less. But the second thing is they want a better quality product, better quality service, and reliability, and a low risk supplier for their company. In the negotiation, they'll probably try to push you down on price. But what you need to be doing as a skilled sales team, a skilled pricing manager, you need to be aware of the concept of total cost of ownership, the awareness that what you're delivering might be cheaper. And you need to guide the purchaser, you need to guide the procurement team in the direction that I suppose benefits you, takes awareness of the pluses of your offer. If you have a much longer lasting product that has been tested, some of these, say a tire that will last 1,000 hours versus one that's tested for 500 hours, you really need to get that across. You really need to be discussing the total cost of ownership and the benefits of your product, not just the upfront price tag on which you could be pushed down on in an apples v apples comparison situation.
Yes, it really does help both the supplier and procurement understand upfront and longer term costs, direct and indirect costs, hidden, obvious costs. The limitations of this concept is that, it's very cost focused, and it doesn't really go into all those risks involved in buying a particular product, delivery on time, supply chain issues, does the product work better than another product, product innovation. That is the downside. But this is something that a good person will go, I can add to this total cost of ownership concept by discussing risk, by going back into the procurement officer's problem, escalating that conversation to real needs, and not just gravitating to cost, thinking about how the product actually boosts their revenue, not just cut their costs, thinking about how working with you can ensure that they have a safe and protected relationship over time, that you'll help them if they need help. You've got the support is there. It's not just about the product that you're selling.
Yeah, like on this podcast, we talk an awful lot about value, but realistically, you can only really dig deep in value when you put yourself in the purchaser or the user's shoes or seat. Why is somebody buying your product? What do they want from your product? How do they value it? And when you look at it from that perspective, that's when you could start, mapping out the actual total cost of ownership, the benefits, the negatives, the costs, the cost savings that product or service delivers. And when you can do that, then you can discuss it with them, and you can discuss those pluses that make your product better vis-a-vis others. I think we'll cover this much more all aspects of this we'll cover in future podcasts, but I think that's really all I've got to say on this one today.
Yeah, just remember that you can use concepts from procurement to get out of those difficult sort of unit price discussions. You don't have to be framed by them. You can control that conversation and turn it around to your advantage too, to benefit you and the person who's buying from you. Well, thanks a lot for listening.
Have a great day.